So you're playing this on the Switch OLED, were you?
Yeah. I
Oh,
was. I
tell
was.
us more
That's a
about.
funny little. Oh, yeah, maybe a segue.
Hmm.
So yes, I bought a Switch OLED because I'm an insane person who doesn't like having money in my bank account. having said all this, and I don't know if I should say this or not, but because I've got a day one Switch, they're the ones with a physical flaw in them, which they can be hacked. So, and you can install whatever you want. I have, you can see it's behind me. I've got like billion games. I've never hacked my Switch. But what it means is that day one Switches still sell for an incredible price. Like it's pretty much like they sell for 450 bucks. So it's going to cost me very little to upgrade.
Yeah,
I'm
of
just
course.
bringing it out of the case right now. So I used the Switch Pad Pro, and it actually just feels like perfect the way it's like shaped. It like because of the screen and it's kind of pushing to the bezels and everything and the big chunky Switch Pad Pro, it just feels like a Nintendo version of the Steam Deck or something like that.
Hmm.
But having said all of this, like, so just with like it just some random impressions of the Switch OLED. I know that you can see this from like a billion other places, but the screen's awesome. I'm so used to OLED screens because my iPhone's an OLED screen. So it didn't completely blow me away, but it's definitely a step up from the original. One thing that I was disappointed about was that they've reconfigured the way that the actual the speakers work on the Switch OLED, and I really care about that. Like I like to have good speakers on just like a portable, right? Like I don't want to have to rely on headphones. The speakers are better. They're front facing, and like they fire at you from a front facing, which is much better. But it's not like a significant step up. Like it actually kind of shocked me. I thought, like you'll see it with iPhones every couple of years, the speaker mode is so much better. It's like, wow, this
Hmm.
actually sounds decent, right? With this, it's like, yeah, it's better. I can definitely tell it's
Hmm.
better, but it's not like a big step. It's really disappointing, honestly, from my perspective. Very like niche kind of concern that I have. I'm coming from a day one Switch, so my battery was like 2.5 hours, and I was playing like Metroid Dread on this on my couch, and I kind of didn't realize I was playing it for like 3 hours straight or something, and it was like I don't know, only half the battery was done, or maybe 40% left or something like that. But no, it's like super awesome. It feels much more premium, like the actual materials.
Hmm.
And it is bigger, but ever so slightly bigger. And everything that I've tried to put it in that I had the original Switch cases and everything have all fit.
Ah, awesome. I was worried
So
about that too.
I think unless you have something that's like, those things that are like molded, that are like
Hmm.
really like joined together or something like that, then I think that's a bit different. But outside
I've
of that, it
heard
should be fine.
with that because I was listening to someone else talk about that, and like a lot of that stuff you can still squeeze it in, but what ends up happening is the holes at the top don't line up anymore because it's like
Yeah.
stretched and everything. So that's where it ends up just being like, well, you just need to probably repurchase a new one.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
That's
point.
whenever, if they haven't got it already, I'm sure they probably already have it for
My
the Steam
cases
model. So
have the top of it has the sort of the outline of the buttons and the Joy-Cons and stuff like that
Oh, yeah.
as bevels to protect them, and they fit into there. So I guess it wouldn't work in a case like that, unfortunately.
But you might find that there's a little bit of tolerance there. Like it might not
Potentially,
be as
yeah,
tight as you
yeah.
think. Like
I'll,
mine, I thought was tight, and then I tried it, and it doesn't feel like it's got some looseness in it still. I was like, oh, okay. Like thought it would have been like actually a lot tighter, but it was fine.
I've got a Pokemon case I got from JB Hi-Fi for $1, so I can always try that because that has nothing. It's just a plain case with
I like
Pikachu on it.
I like it. The idea of you like the thought process of you purchasing that item. It's only a dollar.
I
Do I
know.
need it? Do I love
Yeah,
Pokemon? No,
that's
no, I don't
that
need
was
it.
the thought
But it's
process.
only a
Yeah,
dollar.
it's
It's
a
going to take up
buck.
more space. I'm now a minimalist, but it's only a
Well,
dollar.
in the
He's not a
unlikely event,
minimalist.
my actual Switch case will get destroyed, which is about a million times less likely than the Switch itself getting destroyed, but whatever. Yeah, I thought, hey, I'll get it.
Yeah.
Hey, just a really quick thing about
Yep.
about the sound. I find because I play mine in handheld mode most of the time, and if I play a game, I tend to play it on one of my speaker setups, either the 5.1 on the main TV
Mm.
or uh, whatever Logitech speakers I have with a sub on my PC. So the sound tends to be quite good. But I often make what I think is a mistake, and that is I play handheld without headphones. And the moment I remember to put my headphones in, it's a whole different experience to me. I think I forget how crucial sound is as an element in a lot of games. You take it for granted. I actually sound whatever. It's about the visual image. It isn't. It's so much more than the visual image. The sound makes such a huge difference to the atmosphere and the feel of the game and stuff like that. And I did actually try it very quickly with Metro Dread specifically, and headphones are an amazing experience. You hear all these cool sounds without them, and I just have a regular Switch. I don't have the OLED Switch. You just lose so many different details in the sound. It's a whole different experience. So from now on, I've kind of made myself this thing where I have to remember to use the bloody headphones. And in case we haven't mentioned this, and we actually haven't because it happened during our break, the latest iteration of the firmware for the Switch now officially supports Bluetooth headsets. So I've tried a few of them, worked perfectly well out of the box, super happy with it. So it's been an awesome experience using that stuff.
So, Mike, are you going to get one?
I am heavily contemplating it. The 299 deal that EB had was not worth it for effectively an upgraded screen, because I do have the Mario themed Switch, so battery life and all of that has been fine for me. But if I can maybe sell that Switch for 400 something, $450, and I can find the OLED on special, I probably would. I think the OLED screen is an awesome change to the system. The only thing that I wonder though, and I obviously wouldn't have experienced this yet, is whether there's any issues with burn-in, screen retention, that kind of stuff, which obviously OLED suffer. And I know phones tend to have that, but phones get switched off and elements change a lot more than I think than a game that can have a HUD that is retained there for potentially 50 hours in a game over the course of that game.
Maybe if you're playing like Tetris 99 for 3 hours.
Maybe something like that. I'm curious. Yeah, I'm assuming they've tested that. I'm assuming they've put systems in place to try to avoid that. But I know obviously on TVs it is an issue. Monitors and any of that stuff, it is an issue even to this day.
But it's not too bad compared to the first generation of OLED. I know they've got technology to prevent it, but to your question, Swinny, the OLED Switch, is it worth an upgrade? I think, probably the simple answer is no, right? I think it's nuanced though for those who care. Like definitely if you're on a first year Switch and you've played it a lot and it's a bit bashed up and everything like that, it's a massive upgrade because you didn't get the upgraded processor, battery, all these kind of things. They came out with a model iteration that they did that was kind of an unannounced one. They changed the box, so it's really obvious to tell which one's which. I think might be worth it then, but from the price, it's just really hard to justify it. And I know that you forbade anyone to say Switch Pro, but it is like ultimately very disappointing that there isn't even a bit of a bump, like from a CPU perspective, because there's so many games that I'm sort of put off playing because I know how bad they're going to feel, and like they do feel like, Hyrule Warriors, which I really enjoy that game, and I would happily play it if it was just even rock solid 30 frames per second, but it like dips to like the teens. It's just kind of really ridiculous. So that's a huge shame, obviously. I think if you can upgrade and it's going to cost you like, like $100 or something like that, 150-ish, it's pretty decent deal. It's just that if you've got a later revision of the Switch, they're probably like only going to sell for, $250 now, like maybe $300 if you're lucky. Because we're going to start seeing a dip in prices. It's already happened in the UK. It hasn't hit Australia yet, but it's likely by Christmas you'll start to see Switches start to sell for like $329, $300 even, potentially brand new. So, I think that would really kill the used market for Switches.
So you're telling me upgrade now, pretty much, if I was going to do it?
Like I said, I don't think it's worth it. Like, I don't think it's worth it. And also, you have to be a handheld player. Like, I always play handheld. Well, that's the thing, I
am. Same.
I only play docked when I play Swinny and Smash. Outside of that, I pretty much never play docked. So if you play docked, definitely don't get it, because you're not going to see any difference. Point? Yeah, it's really not worth it.
But I'm 99% handheld as well, so to me, that would be a bit of a jump.
Any other questions, Swinny?
No, I just want to reiterate my disappointment in Nintendo, just in general, for how they've handled everything to do with the Joy Cons. I don't know how difficult or not it is a task to resolve that issue, but the fact that they didn't even do anything at all for this revision,
Oh no, they did.
it,
Did you hear the news about that? I think it's like literally the last 24 hours, maybe.
I
They published a
read the
statement that they actually
yeah.
changed the internals.
Well, the statement they talked about like fixing a few things, but I mean the fact that like they've not provided much technical information whether or not they've done that much, have they?
No, and my opinion on that. So just like to let everyone know, they did issue a statement about Joy-Cons finally and Joy-Con drift. They have
Yeah,
a
I
whole
had that
bunch
as a
of
story
yeah.
that we didn't cover. Yeah,
They have a whole bunch of lawsuits in the States. So they've got to be so careful with what they say, right? And probably from a PR legal perspective, it's almost better to say nothing outside of we've made improvements, like to the Joy-Con in general. And then let other people figure out like have they actually solved the drift part for the most part. So but I agree with you, like your fundamental point. Like I get really annoyed when people say, "Oh, there's no such thing as drift." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" It's like
yeah,
I
I
have like
absolutely had it. Yeah.
literally 10 Joy-Cons in my house that have got drift that I've had to like either try to fix or clean, and it's really annoying.
Do you just buy broken Joy-Cons from eBay? How do you have that many of them?
No, because I've got so many switches in the
Yeah, I
house.
know.
yeah.
I think there's like
I
5 switches in the house.
By the way, Sweetie, there is a very simple fix that people have used, which is just to put a piece of paper, open it up, put a piece of paper
I
behind
know.
it.
I'm the one that shared that with
I
you
know.
guys.
Yeah, but it's also like
Look,
that is not a simple fix because
No,
like
I
opening
know.
it up and then also the
Yeah.
paper will degrade over time.
Of
the
course,
problem
yeah.
for me is I literally cannot use my Switch in handheld mode anymore because of that, unless I'm playing a game that only uses D-pad. So
It's
it's like
affected everyone I know.
yeah. So anyway, I hope that it's obviously just come out. I hope that we can see in let's say 2 months' time if there's because I think it probably would start to see cases at the point if they haven't done enough to change it. So.
So I'm just showing on the screen the white Joy Cons.
They're
I
pretty.
have not used them beyond the initial setup, and then I'll just put them to the side because I know that they'll get broken, and they look really cool, and I like them, and I just don't want to wreck them. Like it was just really stupid and disappointing.
Yeah, well, it's like buying a car and not driving it because you don't want the engine to
Well, not really. It's
go
more
kaput.
like if they gave you a fancy key or something. It's like, oh, I don't want to wreck the
Yeah,
key
I
if
know.
I keep using it, so I'll use a shitty version of the key.
But
Right?
to be fair, using the Hori sticks is
They're so good.
amazing
Yeah.
for the setup.
Yeah.
It's so good.
That's one thing to flag is also just with Metroid Dread. I know we've already moved past that segment, but I think that game might be tricky playing it on the Joy-Cons. I didn't play 1 second playing on the Joy-Cons, so that's something for people to think about because there's a lot of, as you advance in the game, you have to hold multiple buttons, do lots of tricky things with it. It's quite almost technical, that game at the end, like especially if you want to collect everything. So yeah, like the Hori Split Pad Pro, which I can never say, is very awesome. Anyway, that's it for the Switch OLED. Kind of overall, probably don't recommend it for people unless it's very niche cases. Don't think you really need it.